Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Do Different Better with I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, where we talk about wealth, wisdom, and money moves, making finance simple for everyday people. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, founder and CEO of Social Impact Now, Connective Institute, and general partner of the Integrated Capital Fund. Thank you for joining me today. In our last episode, we learned about different types of asset classes, which are categories of investment instruments where you can invest your money. We discussed the opportunities and limitations of each asset class, how to access them, and the regulations that are governing them. We also learned the difference between an accredited and an non-accredited investor. Today, we're going to be diving into the complex and often misunderstood world of debt. And how it can play a significant role in building wealth. Yes, it can actually be a good thing. We'll discuss the differences between good debt and bad debt and how to leverage debt wisely and strategies for managing and reducing debt. So let's get started. So we're kicking off this really, really important topic about debt. And I know debt can be scary as somebody who's had to live through my own bad decisions around debt. Know that there is another side. You don't have to stay mired in this. There is a pathway to get out, not only if you're already in it, but also to change your thinking about how you can leverage it for good. So for many, the word debt can cause lots of stress and anxiety. But today we're going to flip the script and look at debt through a completely different lens, one that sees it as a powerful tool for building wealth. Whether you're dealing with mortgages or student loans or credit cards or personal loans, understanding debt and how it works can help you manage and open the doors to other financial opportunities you may not even considered before. But it's really to crucially understand the context of wealth building and the role that debt plays in it, because believe it or not, debt can actually help you achieve your financial goals. If you use debt wisely, debt can provide the leverage you need to invest in opportunities that generate returns that build long-term wealth. So stick with me as we explore the fascinating and empowering world of leveraging debt. So let's start with the basics. What is debt? Simply put, debt is money borrowed by one party from another party. It is often called a loan. It's a financial obligation that requires repayment, typically with interest, which is the price that they're putting on to lend the money to you, right, over a specific period of time. Debt allows individuals and businesses to make purchases or investments that they may not be able to afford all upfront. So let's talk about the different kinds of debt that you might encounter. These are the typical ones you probably know and heard of and probably engaged in. So the first one is mortgages, right? These are loans that are specifically for real estate. Mortgages are typically long-term, meaning they can be 10, 15, or 30 years. They typically come with relatively low interest rates compared to other kinds of debt. That's shifted a little bit now in this post-COVID world, or are we post-COVID? I don't know. But we're seeing housing rates around 8, 9, 10%, which I remember back in the 90s. Mortgage rates are like at 10%, and that was a good mortgage rate. To get a mortgage with an interest rate at 9 or 10%, you are doing great, right? So how the tables have turned, and now we are full circle. Another one is student loans. These loans help provide individuals to be able to pay for their education-related expenses. They often come with lower interest rates as well, and they have flexible repayment options, especially if they are federal student loans. So you may have heard about the program to buy down your student loan debt. There's a program if you work for a nonprofit for X amount of years, you can reduce your student debt. There's also for debt forgiveness, the student loan forgiveness that is being offered by our current presidential administration. So if you haven't checked this out, please do. I know that they're time sensitive. Then finally, credit cards. I think we all know about credit cards. This is a type of revolving debt, meaning you can borrow up to a certain amount and you can repay it over time. Credit cards usually have higher interest rates. I think they're now tracking at about 30%. For a long time, I remember maybe 10 years ago, they were at 21, 22, and that was the high end. You were doing great if you got an interest rate of 18 or 19%, but now they're tracking up at 29, 30%. And as you can imagine, credit cards that usually have higher interest rates, if it's not managed properly, it can lead to a really significant financial strain. And it can be devastating effect on your access to getting an apartment, getting a car, or getting a home. So credit card debt and student loan debt are what are called unsecured debt, meaning you didn't have to put anything up for it, right? With a mortgage, even though that is unsecured debt, they can still take the home. That's how so it's still kind of secured, sometimes under the category of unsecured debt. But student loans and credit cards, you don't put anything up front. You don't guarantee with your car or your home if it's not paid off, right? So unsecured debt, and you'll hear the term sometimes secured debt, that's when you're putting up what's called collateral. You're putting up something that says, if I don't make my payments, you can take this asset that I have, right? But unsecured loans can be used for a variety of purposes, such as consolidating debt, paying for a wedding, covering medical expenses or emergency expenses. But personal loans like this generally have a higher interest rate than secured loans like a mortgage, right? Understanding these different types of debt is the first step in managing effectively and leveraging them to build wealth. So now let's dive into the world of how debt can be used as a tool for financial growth. When used strategically, debt can help you invest in assets that appreciate over time. They generate income or both. This is a concept called leveraging debt, using borrowed money to increase the potential of return on investment with that money. For example, let's talk about mortgages. By taking out a mortgage to buy a rental property, you can generate rental income from that property that not only covers your mortgage payments, but also provides you with additional income. I have a friend of mine who did this a few years ago. They got a great deal on a property. It was a duplex, and they got the duplex, I think, for $250,000, maybe a little bit less. The mortgage payment that they have to pay every month is $1,400. The rent, because it's a duplex, the going rent in that area is $1,300. Now, the tenants that he had in there when he bought the property only were paying $1,000, but he had the opportunity to up their rent if he wanted to. And actually, between the two units, if he's got two units paying $1,000, that means his total income is $2,000, but his mortgage is $1,400. He is cash flow positive $600 a month. Well, what he ended up doing was he ended up borrowing some money to make about $50,000 to make some updates into the apartment, into the duplex. Now he's able to charge $1,300 or $1,400 a month. So he's making well at $1,400 a month. That's $2,800 a month. His mortgage is $1,300 a month. His loan payment for the $50,000 is only a few $100s a month. So even let's just say he's paying $300 a month for that loan that he got to make the upgrades. That would be $1,400 plus $300. That's $1,700. He's taking in $1,700, but his mortgage now is only. He's making if the rent is $2,400, he's making $2,800. He only has to pay $1,700 in debt. The difference is what he is netting cash, right? So obviously he shouldn't spend that money. He should save it in case something goes wrong with the house, the roof goes down. But you can get the idea of how you can leverage debt to be able to position you to gain wealth. Because over time, that property is going to continue to appreciate. And that property, which he now bought for $250,000, has already appreciated because the improvements he made. And over time, that could probably be a $500,000 property in value for his $200,000, $40,000 loan. So this is what we're talking about, how you can leverage debt. Another example is student loans. Investing in your education can significantly increase your earning potential over time. The key is to ensure that the degree or the certification that you're pursuing there's a job for you that will pay you at a pace that outpaces what your student loan monthly payment will be. And then finally, personal credit cards or personal loans, or credit cards and personal loans. These also can be useful if you manage them properly. For instance, using a credit card to earn rewards our cash back on everyday purchases can provide financial benefits as long as you pay off the balance each month to avoid interest charges. Personal loans can help you consolidate high interest debt into a single lower interest payment, making it easier for you to manage and pay off the debt. I'm a huge fan of rewards cards. I'm a huge fan of shopping at places that give me rewards. I will just give you an example. I use a credit card for almost all of my business purchases. I pay off that credit card at the end of the month because I would have paid the cash anyway. So one, the cash gets to sit in my bank account earning interest, which right now isn't that great, but it's better than nothing, right? As my husband says, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. So I'm holding on to my cash for at least 30 days, right? And I'm earning interest on that 30 days. I'm getting the points on the credit card. And because I'm buying every purchase that I have for my business, almost every purchase with the credit card, I'm earning points 2-3 times the points for every dollar that I spend. Just to give you an example of the benefit of that, this whole year, every Amazon, because my credit card reward points are also available to be used in Amazon, I have not paid cash for one Amazon purchase that I've made this year. All of my Amazon purchases have been made with my points. So I've been shopping on Amazon this whole entire year just using my points because of all of the points that I gained last year by using my credit card for my purchases. So these are the ways that you can think about it. And you might be saying, Elaine, that is a lot of work. Is it? I don't know. I don't know how much I spent on Amazon, but I will tell you, I've got Amazon packages coming in my house at least 2 or 3 times a month. So you do the math. But there's a critical point here of not all debt is created equal. Good debt like mortgages, student loans, and some of you might debate me on that, can build wealth and improve your financial situation. But bad debt, such as high interest credit cards, can hinder your financial progress if they're not managed properly. I'm not saying high interest credit cards are bad. Sometimes you have to get a high interest credit card to be able to get a low interest credit card. But if you are not reasonable and responsible about how much you spend and when you spend, and you're spending outpacing your income, you can get into a lot of trouble. So as we continue to explore the role of debt and wealth building, remember that debt can be a powerful tool when it's used wisely. It's about understanding the opportunities and the risk associated with different types of debt and making informed decisions that support your financial journey and your financial goals. So that's it for this segment on the introduction of debt and wealth building. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the nuances of good debt versus bad debt and how to leverage debt for financial growth. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and you are listening to Do Different Better. I will see you after the break. Hey there, fabulous listeners. Welcome back to the Do.Different.Better Show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. In this segment, we're going to dive deeper into the world of debt and understanding the difference between good debt and bad debt. Knowing how to distinguish between these two can be a game changer in your financial journey. So let's dig in. So what exactly is good debt? Good debt is that used to purchase assets that appreciate in value and generate income. It's the kind of debt that helps you build wealth over time. And here are some key characteristics of good debt. That the good debt is an investment in appreciating assets. So good debt is used to buy things that are likely to increase in value over time, such as real estate or education or business. Number 2, income generation. Good debt can help you purchase assets that generate income, like a rental property or a business or a piece of equipment that will actually lead to more income, right? Manageable interest rates is the third one. Good debt often comes with lower interest rates, making it easier to pay off over time. Ideally, your return on investment can keep pace with the interest and principal that you're paying. So in my example earlier with my friend who bought the duplex, right? And he was in a really good position where, one, he had the mortgage on the duplex, I think, is 3%. So he's got he's got checkbox number 1. The asset's going to appreciate. That's checkbox number 2. And then number 3 is he's got the manageable interest rate of 3%. But he's also getting rental income that's outpacing not only the mortgage, but giving him a little bit extra to be able to maintain the property. And he's got room to grow now that he's taken out another loan and he's made improvements on the home. And there's some really great improvements because he actually redesigned the layout of the house. So the layout, it was originally a mansion and then it was converted into a duplex. So some of the rooms were all weird. So, but he took down some walls, put up some walls, and now the flow is a lot better. So now it's even more appealing to charge a higher rent. So once again, some examples of good debt: a mortgage, you buy your home or you buy some rental property. That rental property or your home is going to ideally appreciate over time. Fun fact, over time, while real estate prices have gone up and down over the past 40, 50, actually probably infinitum, in memoriam, the trend of real estate is always trended up. Always. If you look at it over time, real estate has always trended up. So while you might go through dips during your lifetime, over time, your property will always appreciate. Another good example of debt is student loans. You're making an investment in yourself. Now, the predatory practices of the lenders is not good, but the whole idea of you taking out money to invest in yourself today that will have a financial benefit later by being able to get you a job in a career that not only will get you starting off well, but that there's an opportunity for advancement is typically a good investment, right? And then business loans. Business loans, borrowing money to start or expand a business can be smart if the business has a solid plan and a potential for profitability. A successful business can generate wealth, significant wealth over time. So I'll give you an example. I made an investment in a company, and part of the investment was she needed a piece of equipment, and that equipment was going to allow her to triple her production. So like, okay, if you're going to triple your production, that means you're going to increase your revenue, which means that I have a good likelihood of making that this is a really good investment, right? But now let's start exploring building the case and providing opportunities for wealth building with a case study. So if you take out a mortgage to buy a rental property, here's how this could work as a good debt. And there's going to be a lot of math. I'm sorry I don't have a whiteboard, but I hope you're writing this down and you can follow along with me. You buy a rental property at $300,000. Maybe you put 20% down, which means that you're actually taking a mortgage for $240,000. That's what you're actually borrowing from the bank or the individual if you're doing a seller buy. You're going to rent out the property for $2,000 a month. After paying the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance costs, you are netting $500 a month in rental income. So now let's just talk about the appreciation, right? So we've already cash flow positive, getting $500 a month every month, right? Over the next 10 years, the property appreciates, increasing to $400,000, right? The now property doesn't mean you're going to sell it, but if you wanted to sell it, it's now worth $400,000. As you pay down the mortgage and the property appreciates, your equity in the property begins to grow. You now have $160,000 in equity, meaning the $400,000 of the market value minus the $240,000 mortgage balance that you owe, right? Which means if you wanted to, you could borrow against the $160,000 and either maybe add an addition to the home, maybe you add an apartment, a mother-in-law suite, maybe you build a tiny home in the backyard because you have the land. Maybe you borrow part of that $160,000 to then go buy another rental property. Maybe if you said you put $40,000 down on this property or $60,000 down on this property, you borrow $60,000 to go put that $60,000 into another property. And so this is now how you're building exponential wealth for yourself over the long term, not immediately, but over the long term. In this case, the mortgage that has enabled you to purchase an income generating asset that appreciates over time, building your wealth through rental income and property acquisition. This is a prime example of how good debt can be used to your advantage. Oftentimes, the only way a business can grow is through debt. As your sales increase, so do your expenses. And often you can't keep pace in order to keep pace with production for a packaged good company. You can't make enough in between what your revenue is and what your expenses are to be able to make investment in your company. And that's where you need to get a loan so that you can either buy more equipment, hire more employees. Another thing that you might hear businesses do is they get a line of credit. And the line of credit is, I need bridge capital that's temporary or short term, so that I maybe can pay my employees because we had an extremely big order and we won't get paid for 60 days. So once again, these are all different ways that you can think about debt to the positive. I just talked about reusing debt to remodel. So my friend took out a $50,000 loan to remodel to get a more affluent customer base. By making the duplex more aesthetically pleasing, he's now able to ask for higher rent, right? So there's a short-term, disadvantage of getting the debt for long-term advantage of continuing income, right? So now let's talk about bad debt. Bad debt is used to purchase depreciating assets or items that don't generate income. It's the kind of debt that can lead to financial stress and hinder your ability to build wealth. So here are some key characteristics of bad debt. High interest rates. Bad debt often comes with high interest rates, making it very expensive and difficult to manage. You have purchased a non-appreciating asset. Buying things that lose value over time, like cars, electronics, or vacations, right? That's not to say that those are bad things, but you probably don't want to use debt to pay for a vacation. You probably don't want to use debt to buy an electronic unless, right? Let's go back to managing debt well. I have purchased things on credit that were non-appreciating, like a laptop. However, the interest rate was going to be high after a certain time, meaning they were going to give me a promotional time of 0% or 2% or 5% interest if it's paid off within, let's say, 6 months. So what I have to do is I need to make sure that I'm making those payments every month for 6 months, taking the value of what I purchased, dividing it by 6, making that payment every month. So while I'm not laying out all the cash right away, I'm also making sure I'm paying off the debt before that high interest rate kicks in, right? So the third characteristic is not income generating. Bad debt doesn't help you generate income. When you buy a car, what's the saying? It loses 20% of its or 30% of its value as soon as you drive off the lot. Well, that car might make you feel good, right? That debt is not necessarily going to generate value. But sometimes you have to take on that kind of debt. You need a car, you need to get to work, right? But just understand that doesn't necessarily make it bad, but you want to make sure that you stay on top of it and you make your car payments, because what you don't want to have happen is that not making those car payments gets you into another bad financial situation. So what are some examples of bad debt? Once again, high interest credit cards and payday loans. Everyday purchases, using credit cards for everyday purchases and not paying off the balance can lead to high interest charges. You could be up towards of $200, $300, $400 just in interest. And if your payment is $300 and the interest that is $300, you can never get ahead. You always feel like you're treading water. This debt can quickly spiral out of control and become unmanageable. Then there's payday loans. These are short-term, high-interest loans that are often used to cover immediate expenses like medical expenses, but they have exorbitant interest rates. They are absurd interest rates, and they can trap borrowers into a cycle of debt. And this happens a lot with our military folks. My son is a military vet and had 50 men under him, and he had a couple of men who fell victim to payday loans and could not get out from under, and it's devastating. So, but now let's talk about how bad debt, we'll talk about how bad debt can hinder your financial growth through a case study really quickly. So imagine you have $10,000 in credit card debt and the interest is 20%. I just told you 20%, that was like 15, 20 years ago. It's now 30%. But let's go with 20% just to make it easy. Here's how this can work as bad debt. You end up doing the minimum payments every month. Making the minimum payment barely covers the interest and only makes a small dent in the actual principal that you own, meaning the money that you spent. Interest accumulation. Over time, the interest accumulates and the balance barely decreases. 3, financial stress. The high interest charges and growing balance really can just do mess with your head and create a lot of stress between you and your partner, you and your family. And then finally, you'll miss out on opportunities. The money that was spent on interest payments could have been used for an appreciating assets or building an emergency fund. Or how about this? Going on vacation. I know you deserve a vacation. I want you to take that vacation. In this case, the high interest credit card has become a financial burden that hinders you from building the ability to build wealth, right? And so you really, the key takeaway here is that not all debt is bad. And it's really important for you to understand good debt from bad debt so you can make smarter financial decisions. Using debt strategically to invest in appreciating assets or things that generate income over time and avoiding high interest rate debt can help you get to the financial future that you're looking for and reduce your financial stress. So this is it for our segment on good debt versus bad debt. Stay tuned as we continue to explore strategies for managing and reducing bad debt in our next segment. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next segment, and I'll show you how to do different better. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Do Different Better Show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. And in this segment, we're going to tackle a really crucial topic about managing and reducing debt. If you've been struggling with high interest debt and financial stress, this segment is for you. We're going to cover some practical strategies to manage your debt and steps to reduce it effectively. So let's dig in. So let's first talk about managing bad debt. The key to managing debt effectively is to create a plan and stick to it. Here are some strategies to get you started. I'm going to say the magic word that I know many of you don't like, don't want to hear, makes you cringe, but creating a budget and tracking expenses, right? Start by creating a detailed budget that outlines your income and your expenses. If you're not sure how to even start building a budget, if you put things on your credit cards or you put things on your ATM or your debit card, or if you're putting things on Venmo, collect all that information, even your Venmo account, your Zelle account, all the places where you interact with money. I want you to get a report for the last 30 days, and even better, maybe the last 60 or 90 days, because that's a truer picture of how you've been spending money, right? And what kind of money has come in, whether you have a side hustle that generates cash, maybe you braid hair on the side. Oh, Mr. Skittles is coming for his debut. But this will help you see where your money is going and identify where you can cut back. You know, it's really easy to lie to ourselves. I'm like, oh, I only spend $40 on getting my nails done. But if you look at the bill, after tip, you're actually spending $60. So the human brain is really great at lying to itself. So by pulling all of this information, and all of these platforms can give you a report to say, this is what you did in the last month, or this is what you did in the last 60 days, or this is what you did in the last 90 days. Collect all that information, put it all in a folder, a binder, put it in one place, right? And this is where you're going to be able to start to see, you can start to write down, what did you actually spend every month, and what kind of income did you earn every month, and from what avenues did you earn that income? Track your expenses to ensure that you're sticking to your budget. So every week or every month, sit down and be like, this is what I want to spend. What did I actually spend, right? There are many budgeting apps available that can make this process easier. I haven't used this platform, but I've heard, Rocket Money is a great one. Mint was a great one, but I think Mint is going away. But there are other ones that you can use. Prioritizing your spending to focus on essential expenses like housing, utilities, groceries, and allocate anything that's extra towards your debt. Remember, this is temporary. If you really want to get out of your situation, and I know firsthand, I did this, so I know that it works, of paying down. I had about $30,000, $40,000 of debt, and I was a single parent. and I was able to pay it all off. And I'm telling you, I did exactly what I'm telling you to do. Creating a budget and tracking expenses is the foundation of effective debt management. It helps you stay on top of your finances and ensures that you're making progress towards your debt reduction goals, which is financial freedom. Spreadsheets are amazing. Even if you've never used a spreadsheet before, there's Google Sheets, there's Excel spreadsheets. All you have to do is on the left-hand column, put all of your expenses or anything that you spent money on, right? Cable, streaming services. I would even call those out separately. And especially now, most of them are separate. Your internet bill, getting your nails done, getting your hair done, your haircut. If you're getting a haircut every 6 weeks, put that down. If you go to the barber, put all of these expenses down. If you go to Fresh Time, if you're doing DoorDash, if you're doing Instacart, what are all of those expenses that you're spending money on? Put those all in the column on the left-hand side. And then along the top, you want to put each month, January, February, March, April, May. And then if you want to look, and you would kind of have one tab that's historical, and the next tab forward going. So what did you spend last year, right? That's a bigger, deeper experiment. But if you don't want to go into last year, you can go into what were the last 3 months. If we're talking June, we're in June right now. Hey, May, April, and March. What did I spend across each one of those months, across all of these different things? Then what you're going to do is starting in June, what am I spending now? And start June, July, August. So now you can start to see, oh, now that you become aware, it'll be interesting to see what of your expenses actually shift and change, and what are there ways that you can actually improve your income so you can pay down any debt. Here's the next thing you can do is prioritize your debt payments, right? So there's two methods how you can think about this. One is called the snowball method and one is called the avalanche method. The snowball method includes paying off your smallest debts first while making minimum payments to your larger debts. Once the smallest debt is paid off, you move on to the next smallest debt, and so on and so on. But you take the money that you were paying from that previous one and you add it to whatever payment you're going to make to this one, right? So you're also exponentially increasing the payment as you're paying the debt down. This approach can provide a psychological boost as you start to see that you're eliminating your debts quickly. The avalanche method is paying off debts with the highest interest rates while making minimum payments to the lower interest rates. This was the one that I incorporated. This approach can save you money on interest payments over time and is mathematically actually more efficient way to pay off debt, because by paying off those higher debt ones, the higher interest rate ones, you're getting rid of that high interest payment, which is contributing to the debt that you already have. So if you can knock that out, the lower interest rate ones, they're not going to have such an impact. And because those amounts that you're paying on the higher interest rate ones are going to be higher, once you pay them off and you take that money and start paying off of your lower interest rate ones, you'll be able to exponentially pay those off as well. Both methods have their advantages, and the best approach depends on your personal preferences and your financial situation. The snowball method can be motivating and help you build momentum, while the avalanche method can help save you money in the long run. So you really have to just be honest with yourself. Like, you know what? I need that reward. I need to be able to see traction relatively quickly for me to be able to stay in the game. Then do the snowball method. But if you're like, listen, I don't care if I have to eat ramen for like the next 5 months, I will do that. So then the avalanche method might be for you. The third thing that you can do is consolidate your high interest debt, right? So there are debt consolidation. Debt consolidation involves in combining multiple high interest debts into one single loan with an interest rate. There are companies that do this. Some of them are unscrupulous, so do your research. But they can simplify and reduce the amount of interest that you pay over time. And sometimes they can help you negotiate the interest rates down. Consider options like balance transfer credit cards, personal loans, or home equity loans for debt consolidation, right? But be sure to compare the interest rate and terms to find the best option. So I've used this in the past where I had a credit card that was offering a promotion where they were going to do debt transfer. So the debt transfer had a certain amount of 0% interest over a certain amount of time. So I used, they gave me, I think it was like $5,000 or $10,000. I had a credit card that I think was like at 25%. I paid off that credit card because I knew that I was going to have this zero interest for a certain amount of time. I think it was 6 or 12 months that I could make a significant dent in the principal that I owed on this other credit card by paying it off. So I know some of that sounds confusing, but basically what I did was I took debt from one place and I used it to pay off debt at another place, because the debt that I would have had to, the interest and payments that I would have had to make by keeping it on this high interest credit card was going to be more than what it was going to cost me to not only transfer the other credit card, but I was going to have an amount of time where it was going to be zero interest, where I would be able to pay down the principal significantly before the interest kicked in. So once I did the math, and once again, a spreadsheet is great to help you figure this out really, really quickly instead of pencil and paper. But it made it worthwhile, because even though it cost me $150 to transfer the balance, it was worth it to me over the long haul, because I knew I could pay off the debt, the $10,000 debt faster, with far less interest than what I was doing if I made the credit card payments off the credit card. So these are the different ways that, once again, talking about how can you leverage bad debt into good debt. So debt consolidation can be really, really powerful, but just make sure you understand what you're getting into. So here are some strategies to reduce your bad debt. Reducing bad debt requires a proactive approach and sometimes a bit of negotiation. So if you're not feeling comfortable about negotiating, I'm going to need you to get comfortable. And there are ways to do this. You can practice, right? And I'll talk about some of that. So one of the things is you want to negotiate with your creditors for a lower interest rate or payment terms. That even means your credit cards. That doesn't mean they're going to say yes, but ask the question. You never know. I've also done this. I've called the credit card company and I'm like, I would like you to lower my interest rate. I've been a customer for a long time, even though I might owe them money. I've been a customer for a really long time. I want you to consider lowering my interest rate, or I will pay this off. You have to remember, the credit card companies want you to have debt with them. That is their whole goal. They are making money off of the debt that you owe them. Skittles, you're moving our camera. Understanding that that's their goal, they don't want you to take your debt someplace else. So it's much better for them to reduce your interest rate than for you to go and pay them off and go with another credit card or another payment instrument or loan instrument. So you might be asking yourself, Elaine, why would they want to lower my interest rate? This is the reason why, is to keep you as a customer, right? There are many credit card companies or debtors are open to renegotiation, especially if you've been a good customer or if you've been a long time customer. Maybe you've fallen off the wagon and you haven't necessarily been paying on time, but you can say, hey, I've been a customer for 10 years. I've run into some financial trouble. I'd really like you to consider lowering my interest rate. And they might do that. Or you might want to say, I need to change the date of when I make my payments. Maybe your payments are due on the 15th, but you really actually don't get paid till the 18th of every month. So renegotiating when your payments are due is something also you can do. Be honest about your financial situation. Explain why you're requesting the lower rate or the different terms. Sometimes just asking can result in significant savings. And if you think about that over time, if you've got your interest rate went from 29 down to 25, that's 4%. Over time, that's a lot of money, right? But don't be afraid to negotiate with creditors. It can be intimidating, but the potential savings are well worth it. So remember, creditors want to get paid and they're often willing to work with you to ensure that that happens. But also their goal is to keep you as a customer. They want to keep lending you money, right? So number 2, seeking professional help. There are credit counselors and financial advisors. If you're feeling overwhelmed by your debt, consider seeking help from a credit counseling agency. These are agencies oftentimes for free, but sometimes there is a fee. These agencies can provide guidance in managing your debt, creating a budget, and negotiating your creditors. A lot of times, these or states offer these as services. There are also charities that offer these as services. Do a Google search in your community and see who is offering these services. There are even some that are specific to certain cultural communities. We have some here in Minnesota that are specifically for the Spanish community. They're specific for the Muslim community. And there are people here are here to help you. A financial advisor can help you develop a comprehensive debt reduction plan and provide advice on how to manage your finances more effectively today and for the future. But these professionals can really provide you with some valuable expertise. The credit counselors and financial advisors, they really have the knowledge to help you navigate and inform what you don't know, but also help you manage these challenges and get you onto a path of stability. And then third, building an emergency fund to avoid bad debt in the future, or even just circumstances. It could have been good debt and you had you broke your leg and you were unemployed for 6 months. Okay, it's not necessarily that you had bad debt, but now you're in a bad situation. So once again, building that rainy day fund for any kind of circumstances. An emergency savings offers you a buffer from all these unexpected expenses, such as medical bills, car repairs, job loss. Having an emergency fund can prevent you from relying on high interest debt like payday loans to cover any of these expenses. Aim to save 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in your emergency fund. I would even create a separate savings account for that. If you can, and a lot of employers offer this, have money go to that account and you don't even see it. So I know with my employees, with the platform that our HR platform we use, they can actually divert some of their payroll to a whole different bank account, right? And that they never see, right? So that's something that could be definitely helpful to you, because if you don't see it, then you don't miss it, right? And that's a really great, easy way to like get yourself back on track, right? But once again, building an emergency is one of the best ways to protect yourself from any future financial stress. It provides you with peace of mind and ensures you with the financial safety net when the unexpected arises. So I can't tell you how important this has been for me and my own personal financial journey. I think I shared with you in the first episode how I really started with $10, saving $10 a week. Literally, I was saving $10 a week. I was putting $10 a week in a savings account. And then when that became a normal and I wasn't really missing that $10, I moved it up to $20 a week. And from there, once that became a new normal, I moved it up to $30 a week. And I'll never forget the moment that I had this. My son needed something. I can't even remember what it was, but he needed something, and it was critical. It wasn't mission critical, but it was critical. I don't remember if it was a thing for school or something like that. And it was shoes. I don't remember. But the whole idea was, and the reason why I don't think I remember it, because it was insignificant, because I had the money to pay for it, right? Which was a beautiful, beautiful thing that I had. I knew that I had the money to pay for it. I didn't have to work. I didn't even have to check my bank account. I knew that I had it, and the comfort and the peace of mind that I felt when I was like, sigh of relief of like, I wasn't frantically checking my bank account on my phone or on the computer to see if I had the money. I had the money. It was such a freeing feeling. I was like, oh, I want more of this. And if I keep doing what I'm doing and I keep amplifying what I'm doing, I'm going to have this feeling more often. And so now I've been able to evolve to this place where like, I love talking about money, hence the show, right? And you can get there too. Or my hope for you is that we can get you to a place where it's less stressful to talk about money. You are positioning yourself in a way that you feel better or less anxiety around talking about money, particularly to your family or to your partner, right? So, with all of this, I really want you to start thinking about, what is my relationship with debt? What do I owe? Is it out of control? Have I been avoiding, right? Get it out of your head and onto paper. There's something empowering about getting it onto paper. When you get it onto paper, you can say, okay, this is what it is. And once you identify what it is, now you can start to craft a plan. You cannot craft a plan while it's all living up in your. And this is where the power of spreadsheets. I know I've said this before. Spreadsheets are my love language. I love a spreadsheet, not because I love math and not necessarily because I love spreadsheets, but I love the information and how I can get to information really quickly by just manipulating a little pieces of the information to be like, well, if I did this, then this would happen. If I did this, then this would happen. And so for me, it's like super, super valuable to be able to have that kind of information at my fingertips. Well, that wraps up another episode of Do Different Better. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and today we've explored the good and the bad of debt, right? all the different ways that you can leverage and manage debt, how you can manage it effectively. And I also offered you some strategies on how to get started if you've got some bad debt now that you really want to get under control. So join me in the next episode of Do Different Better with Elaine Rasmussen. We'll be diving into more wealth building opportunities. I cannot wait for next week's conversation. And it looks like Mr. Skittles wants to make an appearance today. So we're going to have him on the show next time as well. But let me know what you think of the show. We love comments. So tell us how the show has helped you. If there's been a money or finance question you have, or if there's somebody you want me to interview, hit me up on LinkedIn and Instagram. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and follow us on your social. Once again, you've been listening to Do Different Better. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Can't wait to see you next time where we will do different better.